Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Zebra Marketing Show. Glad you could join me. Today, we are talking about why teams don't follow up fast enough. This always happens. We're busy, people have things going on, and leads might fall through the cracks. But why does that really happen? And what can we do about it as business owners and as sales teams who need to convert leads into customers? Make sure that if we're paying for ads or we're spending money on marketing, that when we do get leads, that those leads get appropriately followed up with so that we can close the sale. So today we're going to explore that a little bit. And I'm going to be sharing a solution with you, and we're going to unpack that. So my name's Laura Camrath. I am the founder and CEO of Zebra Marketing, and we help B2B companies, cybersecurity, IT, oil and gas, companies who do technical things to get in touch with the customers and the people who can benefit from their services, and help them to grow their companies, build their brand, and get the most out of their marketing and know that they're spending their money effectively for the highest ROI. We help people put in place systems so that they can enjoy predictable hockey stick growth month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. So if that is something that you'd like to do, and if you feel like you need some help, drop a comment. I will be back here to take a look at the comments. And if you have any questions, certainly drop your questions in the comments, and I'll be back to answer your questions. So please, if this is a useful, valuable conversation for you, please do like, share, drop a comment. It just helps us engage better as a community. And if you have anyone that you know in your network who would benefit from this conversation, please do share so that we can help more people be wildly successful in their businesses. All right, so let's hop over here and take a look at this problem. Why leads aren't getting followed up with fast enough. Okie dokie. So why your team isn't following up fast enough, and it's not what you think. Most teams don't have a follow-up problem. They have a bandwidth problem. The leads are coming in, the intent is there, we want to follow up, we want to be on top of it, but between full inboxes, competing priorities, and a relentless pace of work, fast follow-up keeps falling through the cracks, and nobody realizes how much it could be costing, because that may not necessarily be a metric that we're measuring. First, I'd like to have a quick conversation with Zoe, my voice AI, just so you can get an idea of what it's like to have automated follow-up in place that gives you a real human-like conversation. All right, so I'm going to call Zoe real quick from my website widget, where you can actually just put a widget on your web. Customers can click and talk to your AI. And the advantage of AI is, hi. Yeah, actually, that sounds really cool. I think, it might be something that we like to find out more about, or maybe talk to a human. Actually, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's Laura at email.com. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So you can see she's now going to go forward and book me into a call with the sales team, or book me into a call with myself. But you can see how powerful that voice AI can be. That there's always a professional voice on the phone 24/7, 7 days a week. Anytime anyone calls, it's always going to represent your business in a professional manner. It's always going to give you a professional experience, or your callers a professional experience, and it's never going to miss a call. It can take like 90 calls a minute. So, if there's people calling it at the same time, there's not going to be a busy signal. There's not going to be any of that. You can train it with your knowledge base so that it can answer pretty much any question that somebody might ask. Or if it's not able to answer the question, it can book someone into a call with a member of your team. All right, awesome. So let's jump back over to the presentation here. Okie dokie. Okay. So, most leaders tend to assume that, if follow up slow, then, you know, maybe the team just isn't moving fast enough. They're just not being responsive enough. They just need to try harder. They need to be more disciplined. But the reality is that discipline isn't really the bottleneck, and motivation isn't the issue. The problem is that there's not a system in place. And pushing harder on the wrong lever doesn't necessarily move the needle. It just burns out your team. Your team's already busy. They're, you know, they're doing active client work. They have, clients that you already have that they're making sure are happy. They have internal meetings going on that help, creates a fragmented day. They're being pulled away for different things, for different meetings. They're getting phone calls, and, coworkers maybe coming in to ask them for something. And, the, it causes delays. And, your team is juggling priorities. They've got a lot of different things going on. And even though, new leads are super important, there's just not enough human attention span in a day always to follow up in an immediate, timely manner. Um, so live opportunities in the pipeline rightly get attention, but they push new leads further down the queue. So, if they're already working a deal and that client has a meeting or they need a follow up, they're probably going to prioritize that existing going opportunity potentially more than a new lead, just because it's already further down the pipeline and closer to a close. Um, so, the humans are doing the best that they can. They are prioritizing as they can with the time that they have available. Our human time is limited. We cannot make more hours in a day. We can't make more minutes in an hour, and that's just the way it is. So, um, if leads don't feel urgent internally, there may be a fundamental perception gap between how your team sees a new lead and how that buyer is actually experiencing the moment. And your team, from the team's perspective, they see the lead come in, they see the form submitted. It's just been submitted a couple minutes ago. Now they're working on whatever they were already working on. And so maybe they're going to finishing that, and then they'll get back to the lead. But from the buyer's perspective, they're actively trying to solve a problem right now. They've submitted a form perhaps on your website or on a landing page if you were running ads, and now they're just going about their active search. They're searching for a solution to their problem. And once they reach out, they're not necessarily just going to wait around for you to get back to them. They're going to keep searching. They're not just like, okay, well, I submitted the form, I've made an inquiry, and now I'm just going to sit around and wait. They're still wondering how to solve their problem. They're still looking for the right solution to their problem. So they may keep looking at other options. And if you don't get back to them right away, they may find another solution before you're able to get back to them, or they may make a decision that perhaps you're not the best partner if you're not able to be extremely responsive to them, right when they're actually looking for a response from you. So there's a hidden timing mismatch. There's a gap between we'll get to it shortly and I'll keep looking until someone responds. And that is the gap where deals are lost because, as I mentioned, the buyer doesn't just say, okay, well, I've submitted the form and I will just sit here and wait for them to get back to me. They keep looking. And so your team's timeline looks a bit like this. The lead comes in. They are finishing their current task. They are working on whatever they are currently working on. They could be in a meeting. They could be out of office for a minute, whatever it is. And they decide, oh, I'm going to have to respond in a few hours when I can get to it. The buyer's timeline looks a bit like this. They submit a form or they reach out, they wait briefly, and then maybe they contact a competitor, they continue their search, and perhaps they find a solution in the time between when they reached out to you and when you were able to get back to them. So the follow-up actually breaks down. It doesn't collapse in one big failure. It erodes through a series of small invisible delays. Each one is reasonable on its own. Just a moment. Close the pinging so it stops pinging. Okay, so each invisible delay, it seems reasonable on its own, but when you compound those small invisible little delays, just makes for more and more bigger delays. So a lead comes in while your rep is on a call, and by the time they're out of the meeting, the moment has passed. Or between tasks, they're transitioning between priorities. Maybe they are designing a presentation or a proposal for another customer, or answering another inquiry. And between getting that completed and following up with the new leads that are coming in, those notifications get buried or dismissed or just pushed onto the back burner. And if a lead comes in at the end of the day, then somebody says, okay, well, it's 4:55 p.m. and I was just about to walk out the door. I'll get to this in the morning. And maybe they call the competitor and the competitor gets back to them right away at 6:05 p.m. even though it's after hours and nobody's in the office. They get a reply, they get booked into a meeting. So it's just a question of who's handling this better. Are you handling this better, or is your competitor handling this better? And that's the experience that people are going to have. And just like a crisp, nice, clean business suit that you're wearing to a job interview, um, prospective customers are judging you based on the experience they have with you. And just based on what their experience is like when they first call in, or when they um, contact you or fill out a form, they're going to make a judgment about your company based on every interaction that they have. And if they're calling in and getting an automated system and they're getting the runaround, and press 1 for blah blah blah, press 2 for blah blah blah, and then if they're having a challenging or frustrating experience with you just to reach out and have a sales call, that is going to on your business. Even if you may have the best services and you offer the best support and you are super attentive and you do a really really good job, um, you know they they're going to judge you based on like the very first interactions that they have. So having uh, a really professional system deals down the line, because they're going to feel taken care of. So the compounding effect of delays don't stay small, they compound. What starts as a 15-minute gap quickly snowballs into something that costs you the deal entirely. So 15 minutes is an initial small delay. Maybe it's 1 hour, and the interest begins to fade because they started talking to your competitor. And in 3 hours, that deal could be lost because maybe they had a good conversation with the competitor and they liked what they heard. And maybe they've already received a proposal even. That by the next day, that lead could be gone. Um, and there is some timing delay with B2B services. We do tend to have longer sales cycles, but why wait? Why make that buyer wait when in that time period when they're waiting, they are probably continuing to look for other options. So this is why the pipeline feels inconsistent. If the revenue feels unpredictable, some months could be strong, under others maybe inexplicably slow. And leaders often just blame the market or seasonality or lead quality, or they don't really know what the cause is. But the real culprit is usually much simpler. Response timing is inconsistent. So leads sometimes get a response in minutes. Sometimes they have to wait hours, or maybe they never hear back. Maybe they fell through the crack. And when that's happening, when there's that inconsistency, then the results spike and dip accordingly. The demand may be steady, but the follow up isn't steady. And so that variation is what creates the turbulence you feel in your pipeline every month. Especially what tends to happen is, maybe we have a bunch of leads come in and we do follow up with those leads and we get some business. And then the sales reps are busy because they're attending to getting those new customers onboarded, or getting them, set up and ready to go. Or maybe they're producing proposals or something. And then those other new leads that are coming in don't get a timely follow-up. And so what results is this kind of roller coaster effect of sales where sometimes we're doing really well and then sometimes we're kind of experiencing a dip. So That's what we want to mitigate against. We want consistency. We want predictable pipeline. So what is the tracking this, or it's not always easy to track because we don't always know that's what's happening. You don't get a notification that says deal lost due to slow response. That lead just goes quiet, and maybe they just don't respond or they start ghosting you. So lost conversations, buyers who just never you never hear back from them, they just simply move on. There's no rejection. They don't tell you, hey, I found another option. They just stop responding. And, that may mean that, we don't know that that opportunity was lost because we don't know why they stopped responding, or if they may still respond in the future. It's just not a deal that's closing, and it's not moving forward, and they're not answering you. They're not responding. So, um, you get a lower conversion when that happens, because even when contact is initially made, delayed engagement means the buyer is already less committed, or they're not really super interested, or they may feel like they have better options. So the deals go elsewhere. Competitors with a faster moving system scoop up the buyers that you worked hard to attract because they had better follow up and the customer felt more attended to. They felt like they found what they needed in more of a timely fashion, perhaps. So, what makes this especially painful is you already paid to generate those leads. You put money into the vending machine expecting to get leads out of the vending machine, and the leads did not come out. They got stuck in the machine. So, unless you're there rattling the machine, they're probably not going to come out. So the acquisition cost is a sunk cost. The money is not coming out of the machine, and the leads are not coming, the deals are not coming out. So the loss is pure margin. So, if you're putting money in on the front end and revenue is not being generated on the back end, that's a loss of margin, and that's lost revenue for your company. So this is not a motivation problem. It's not that, your team is just effort, which is what we tend to kind of think is we just need better salespeople, or they just need to do more, or they need to try harder. But, they just need to follow up faster. And it's just not the truth. It's commonly what we think, but that's not really useful because the team is already working hard. They're already doing as much as they can in the human hours that they have. And just putting more pressure on them is not necessarily going to improve the situation. They need better infrastructure. They need a better system. So telling your reps to just be more responsive assumes that they have idle time that they're choosing not to use, or they're just not on top of their game. But they don't have extra time. The capacity simply isn't there to respond instantly to every inbound lead while managing everything else that's already on their plate. So motivation is not the constraint. System design is. System design problem. The highest performing revenue teams aren't faster because their people try harder. They're faster because they've engineered out the delay. It's not memory. Human memory is unreliable under load. Systems don't forget. People forget because they get busy. Systems don't forget. If we have a system where we can track every lead, then we don't forget to follow up with those leads because they're in the system. And, management can check how many leads are in the system. How did they get followed up with? When did they get followed up with? And what was the outcome? And so we can track everything when we have a system. and management has complete and total visibility into what's going on. And then, you know, not it's not a manual process that's needed. Manual steps introduce delays at every handoff. Systems route leads instantly. So having a system ensures that there are no delays, that every lead is handed off, every lead goes into the system, every lead is tracked, and every lead gets a timely follow-up. So not it's not just we want to have good intentions. Intentions don't survive a packed calendar. Systems operate regardless of packed calendar, regardless of whether humans have time or not. And high performing teams rely on systems. And those systems are where separate predictable revenue from is what separates predictable revenue from unpredictable chaos. So, it's not just that we need to push our teams harder. We need to have systems to ensure that our teams can be successful. What does a broken system look like? Let's see. Just a moment. I'm just trying to close some of these things that keep binging. Okay. Okie dokie. So, what does a broken system look like? Most companies don't realize that their system is broken until they audit it. And here's what dysfunction looks like in practice. And it's more common than most leaders want to admit. So leads come and they sit in an inbox waiting for manual action. So perhaps you're running digital ads, perhaps you're running SEO. Somebody makes an inquiry, they fill out a form, they give their contact information, and then the lead goes into an inbox and it waits. That person is now waiting for somebody to get back to them. The notifications get missed or buried in the noise. So somebody whose job it is to follow up is busy. Maybe they're making a proposal for another prospective customer. Maybe they're in a meeting. Maybe they're out of the office. Maybe, all kinds of different things. So then follow-up is depending entirely on the individual and their personal availability. And there's no clear response time standard or ownership defined. So maybe if Bob is out of the office, maybe Joe's job to follow up, but now Joe's dealing with everything that's on Joe's plate plus Bob's plate. And, so it just results in human delays because humans can only be one place at a time. So each of these creates inconsistency, and inconsistency is the enemy of scalable revenue. So when the process depends on individuals rather than structure, results vary as much as personalities do. So what does a strong system look like? In contrast, a well-designed follow-up system removes human delay from the critical early moment. So every lead has the same fast professional experience regardless of who's in a meeting. So we get instant acknowledgement. The buyer hears back the moment they raise their hand. There's no waiting, no wondering. And they get immediate engagement. The system begins qualifying and guiding the prospect before a human even sees the lead. And there is a structured follow-up. Every lead follows the same sequence, consistent, trackable, and optimized over time. And there's clear ownership. Every lead is assigned. Nothing waits in a shared queue where everyone assumes someone else will act. Everyone knows who's responsible. map the response flow. Before you can fix the system, you need to see the system. Most companies mapped what they intend to happen. So, what is actually going on, in other words? What actually happens when a lead comes in? So, actually sitting down and tracking, what is happening to the leads when they come in, not what do we hope will happen or not what do we want to happen, what is actually happening. And actually sitting down and taking a look at that so you have visibility into what's going on. So maybe the lead comes in, maybe there's a delay, maybe sometimes there's a delay, sometimes there's not. Maybe we do, or maybe we don't, maybe it just comes in and we expect someone from the sales team to get back to them. And then what is the outcome per lead? How many of the leads are actually closing? How many leads are actually coming in month over month? And, what is our customer acquisition cost, which is, the cost to acquire a new customer? If we can respond more quickly to more leads, then our customer acquisition cost is likely to go down, the cost to acquire a new customer, because those leads are not falling through the cracks. And if fewer leads fall through the cracks, more leads are likely to close into actual deals and actual revenue for the business. So, where do bottlenecks usually exist? The same choke points appear again and again across organizations of every size. Identifying them is the first step to eliminating them. So, manual routing. Leads wait for a human to decide who handles them instead of being assigned automatically by rules. There may be delayed notifications about leads through email digests or batch reports minutes or hours after the lead arrived. So, if the leads are going into someone's inbox, everybody's inbox these days is just chock full of all kinds of different stuff. And, if it's going in there amongst all the other 5 million things, it might be getting lost. So, is there some sort of priority notification or a text message, or how are they finding out about that lead? And then there may be unclear ownership. So if it's a shared inbox that the leads are going into, and somebody is supposed to follow up, but we don't know exactly who, then, it creates some confusion or diffusion of responsibility. Everyone assumes somebody else will get it. Or, hey, are you getting that? Hey, are you getting that? Who's going to respond? If there's no clear ownership, then, that can also be a bottleneck. And then there may not be a response standard. Without a defined, service level agreement or defined process, then follow-up timing is left entirely to the individual's judgment, which means wide variance. So if you don't set, in other words, if you don't set expectations, then the sales team is just doing what they think is best or what they are able to do, and prioritizing according to what they think is most important. And what they think is most important may not be the thing that you think is most important. So, setting really clear expectations is important, and making management's expectations clear with the team so that they know what they are supposed to do and how you want things to be prioritized. Automation factor into all of this? What does automation remove? It removes human delay in the first response. As you saw with Zoe, the voice AI, she responds immediately as soon as somebody calls in. And then reliance on representative availability. If a human is not available, that call is not getting answered. If there's a voice AI, that person who calls in is going to immediately get a response whether a human is available or not. And then manual routing decisions, knowing who gets to answer this lead or who's responsible for responding, inconsistent follow-up cadences, just not having time to follow up right now creates inconsistencies, and then dropped leads due to workload. If the salesperson is prioritizing something else right now, maybe they're taking care of an existing customer, maybe they're putting together a proposal, maybe they're doing whatever our human people do when they're at work. The leads are not getting followed up with. So what does automation guarantee? Automation doesn't replace your team. It handles the clock sensitive moments. So your team can focus on the conversations that require real human judgment and relationship building. Every lead gets an instant first touch. Every sequence runs on schedule. Every follow-up happens, regardless of what else is on the team's plate that day. So for example, say you're running digital ads, you can, say somebody fills out an online form and requests information from you on a digital ad landing page, then they can be followed up with by a chat AI. And the chat AI can send them a text message and they can engage them in a conversation that immediately answers their questions, squashes their objections, and books them into a call with your sales team. So if you're running digital ads, you're not just waiting for that person who made an inquiry to have a human follow up. They're immediately getting engaged in conversation. And if they don't book a call for some reason, then the AI will follow up within 1 hour. It will follow up within 24 hours, within 48 hours, automatically, to make sure that those leads are being booked in. Because maybe that person was sitting at the doctor's office when they chatted in, and then the doctor called them in, and now they aren't responding to the chat. It may not be that they just weren't interested, but maybe it was just a bad time right now, or maybe they were about to go into a meeting, or who knows. But making sure there's that consistent follow-up, and not requiring a human to do it at those crucial early moments, allows that person, that lead, to be followed up with and then booked into a call to make sure that that they're going to have a conversation when the sales team is ready, but they are attended to at that instant moment when they responded, when you had their attention. What does instant response look like? When the system is designed correctly, the buyer's experience changes completely. From their perspective, your company is just always on. You are on your game. So the lead submits a form. The moment they click submit, the system is already in motion. So they get instant acknowledgement. They receive an immediate personalized response. Their questions are answered. Their value is confirmed. Their objections are squashed. They're guided to a next step. The system qualifies, nurtures, and guides them toward scheduling a conversation. They have a meeting booked. So the AI can automatically book them into a call with your sales team. A calendar link is offered, or it simply asks them when would be a good time. Would Tuesday at 9 a.m. work, or perhaps Wednesday at 2 p.m.? What would work better for you? It can give them options. They can check their calendar and say, oh, hey, I think Tuesday at 9 a.m. would work just fine. Then it can confirm the appointment with them, collect their email, phone number, and their name, and any important information, and book them into a call. It can then summarize the conversation for the salesperson so they know what the person's inquiry was about, and they know what they were interested in, and any qualifying details that need to be collected for the salesperson to do a better job or be more responsive to them when they actually have a call together. All of that can be automated, which is absolutely incredible. It's a game changer. So why does this change everything? Speed of response is one of the highest leverage variables in sales conversations or sales conversions, and it's almost entirely within your control. So, what happens with instant engagement? Buyers stay engaged. When you respond instantly, buyers stay in your orbit. They're not moving on to something else because they're already talking to you and their intent is still warm. They're looking for their problem to be solved. And when they are paying attention to you, you are paying attention to them. So they don't have to wait. When you wait even 5 minutes to an hour, they were paying attention to you. Now they're doing something else. So engaging them while you have their attention is critical. And then conversations start sooner. Earlier engagement means more time to build rapport, uncover needs, and guide the decision. And then conversion improves. So more conversations started sooner with more engaged buyers. The math on conversion is simply better. More conversations, if you are converting a certain percentage of conversations, then having more conversations is going to help you just close more deals. So, and then when you're closing more deals, your customer acquisition cost goes down. So the cost to acquire a new customer is going to be reduced because you're not missing leads. You're converting more of the leads that are coming in. So your momentum is preserved. And momentum is everything in a competitive sales environment. So having a system creates reliability. Every lead, every time, no exceptions. With a well-designed system in place, follow-up stops being a function of who's available or what day it is or how full someone's inbox is. The process runs consistently regardless of circumstances. So there are no gaps. Every inbound lead triggers an immediate, structured response automatically. There are no missed opportunities. Leads don't fall through the cracks because the system doesn't have cracks. And then there's no timing dependence. Response quality doesn't degrade at 4 p.m. on a Friday any more than it does at 9 a.m. on a Monday or a Saturday. A lot of us are in 24-hour businesses. And if it's 6 p.m. or 1 a.m. or Saturday or Sunday and nobody's in the office, and somebody calls in, are they being attended to or not? Do they have to wait till Monday? So this is how teams scale. Scaling without systems doesn't create growth. It creates amplified chaos. So more leads simply means more missed opportunities. But scaling with systems changes the equation entirely. Without systems, as lead volume grows, the team gets just more and more overwhelmed. The response times get longer, more leads fall through the cracks, and growth in demand translates directly into growth in losses or lost leads. So, just trying to get more leads in the door doesn't necessarily mean more closed deals. You have to have a system in place to make sure that those leads that are coming in get responded to in an instant, timely manner, feel taken care of, have a call booked in with your sales team, and that you have a system in place for growth. So with systems, as lead volume grows, the system handles the early engagement. Every lead gets a response. Growth in demand translates directly into growth in conversations and revenue. More conversations equals more closed deals. All right, so from effort to design. The shift isn't about just working harder. It's about working smarter through intentional system design, engineering the outcomes you want instead of hoping effort alone gets you there. So a lot of us are working in a just like work harder environment. Just do more, just try harder, just get it done faster, follow up faster. Just You need to be checking your inbox every 5 minutes. Push, push, push. And, it does not translate to more consistency because we as humans we can only do so much. So, what we need is a process and a system. So we need to design the process. We need to include automation, automate the first response so that every lead gets an instant follow up. Every lead is immediately attended to, that we are responding while we have that person's attention. Because, our attention spans are very diluted these days. We are in very, very, just busy online environments. We're constantly being bombarded. And, we may be interested in something, but, we were interested and we had time to think about it right now. 5 minutes later, we may be onto something else and we just don't have time right now to think about it anymore. I mean, I can speak for myself. Recently I had a meeting coming up in 15 minutes. I had a reminder come up on my phone that said, you have a meeting in 15 minutes. And between that, reminder that told me I have a meeting coming up and when the meeting actually happened, I got like reabsorbed into some work I was doing. And, within 15 minutes, I already have forgotten that I was supposed to jump on a meeting. So, I know I'm not the only one. This happens to all of us. We are just busy. And that's why having an immediate follow up where you're following up right now when that person's paying attention to you can be a deal breaker or a deal gainer, as the case may be. So if you're ready to fix your follow-up system, then and you understand the real problem now. The question is, what are you going to do with that? High performing teams don't wait to redesign their systems. They move on it while the insight is fresh and the cost of inaction is clear. So if you want to see exactly how companies are solving this and the system that they're using to capture every lead every time, drop the word pipeline below in the comments and I'll send you a breakdown of the full system. So this is how the teams are winning on response time. And this is how they're doing it. And it's more straightforward to implement than you might think. So if that sounds like something that you'd like more information about, drop the word pipeline in the comments below and I will get you hooked up with that information. So just to recap, leads don't disappear. They move on. They keep searching. They keep looking. They're trying to solve their problem. And they're going to continue to look for the solution until they find it. So the market is full of buyers who are actively looking, actively reaching out, and actively choosing whoever responds first. Every minute of delay is a minute your competitor has to take that conversation instead. So the question isn't whether your leads are valuable enough to follow up on quickly. The question is, do you have a system that catches them before they move on? So I hope this has been a valuable conversation for you. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat below or in the comments below. I will be back to check the comments to find out if anyone had a question and respond to your questions. If you'd like more information, drop the word pipeline in the comments below. I will be back to take a look and respond and let you know how you can get more information or, simply hop on a call together. And my name again is Laura Camrath. I am founder and CEO of Zebra Marketing. We help B2B companies to implement systems for consistent, predictable hockey stick growth so that you can grow your revenue, grow your business, and know that you're spending your money effectively for the highest ROI. So if this has been a valuable conversation for you, please do share with your network if you know of anyone who would benefit from these conversations. and drop a comment below. It helps us engage better as a community. And of course, I will be here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. So please do hop back of full topics when it comes to business growth and B2B marketing and creating consistent systems so that we can grow our businesses. So so we're going to be talking about everything from lead generation to lead conversion to responsive support and making sure that we have customer retention, because at the end of the day, if we keep getting new customers on the front end but we're losing customers on the back end, we're not going to be able to grow. So taking a look at all the ways to bring in new customers, attract leads, convert them to customers, and then retain them long term so that we can grow our business. So please do join me every Wednesday. I'll be here again on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And I look forward to seeing you then. All right. Well, have a great afternoon, and I'll see you next week.